Welcome back to the PigX Podcast and the fourth episode of our niche production mini-series. I'm your host, Delaney Howell. Last week, we heard about the importance of protein in pigs and took a closer look at research focused on swine nutrition. This week, we're excited to wrap up our conversation on niche production in the final episode of this special mini-series. The topic of conversation today is considerations when it comes to marketing, especially in direct-to-consumer sales for small-scale swine operations. While the focus is on pork producers, many of these principles apply broadly to any direct marketing business. Joining us today is Dr. Colt Knight, the state livestock specialist at the University of Maine. He'll share insights on the importance of building strong community connections to boost sales and how creative approaches can open up new opportunities for niche producers. Let's start by hearing some valuable thoughts on direct marketing from Dr. Knight.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Colt Knight. I am an associate extension professor with the University of Maine, and I serve as the state livestock specialist for cooperative extension. And today I thought we could talk a little bit about direct marketing in a small-scale swine operation. Here in the Northeast region, we don't have access to things like stockyards or a lot of wholesale markets, and the majority of all sales are farm to table. You know, most operations are farrow to finish, or they're going to buy feeder pigs and raise them up and then sell them directly to the consumer, either through the custom exempt model or through retail marketing on farm stands, CSAs, so on and so forth. And I work with a lot of farms that have this exact model, so I thought I'd kind of share my experience and the experiences of some of my clients that I work with on successful direct marketing operations. I think most folks get into direct marketing because they simply have pigs on their farm anyway. Maybe they're raising them for their kids' show, or they're just raising meat for their own consumption. And then their neighbors stop by and say, "Hey, I see you got some pigs," or your friends and family say, "Hey, I know you've got some pigs. I'd like to buy some pork." And we go the custom exempt route. And that means that we are selling the live animal or a share, like a half or a quarter of the live animal to the individual. And then we're going to drop that off at the processing plant. And they're going to cut it up to the specifications of the client, and then they can just go pick up their meat. Now, that meat is marked not for sale.
Dr. Knight explains that there are many advantages to this model. Selling directly to the consumer not only allows producers to build personal relationships with their customers, but it also, of course, offers more control over pricing, branding, and the overall customer experience.
There's a lot of benefits to this model. The first is you don't have to worry about any of the cuts that are hard to sell. You're not going to get stuck with a whole bunch of sausage or hindquarters or shanks or something that you may have to deal with in a retail situation. The other benefit to this model is you don't have any cold storage. You know, you are taking the live animal to the processor, and the client is picking up the meat from the processor. So you don't have to have freezers, storage space, and whatnot. So that's really good. Also, you can get pre-sales on this, so you know that animal is going to belong to such and such person, so you don't have to worry about what happens to it once it gets to full size. So that's all a good benefit of the custom exempt model. Some of the downfalls of that custom exempt model is when you start marketing, when you want to grow, you run out of neighbors, friends, and families, and you start expanding your reach, and then you realize, hey, there's a lot of other people that are doing this exact same thing further away from you, and now you have to develop a story, a marketing niche, something that sets you aside from everyone else. And of course, the biggest hurdle with the custom exempt route is the disparities in the carcass weight and what the actual product is that the consumer gets back. Plus, they're paying two different people. So they're paying you for the hot carcass weight of the animal, and then they're paying the butcher fees on top of that to the butcher, and the disparity of what they actually get back in product. So if the hot carcass weight is 70 to 74% of the live weight, that's what you're charging them for, but they're actually going to get less than that back because they're going to lose some to the processing, bones, etc., if there's any bruising, abscesses, whatnot. And, a lot of clients don't really understand this process, so there's a lot of education on your part to let them know beforehand, so they don't think that you're stealing meat or the butcher is stealing meat or that they are paying for product that they're not receiving, and it's just part of the overall process. Here in Maine, I actually developed a fact sheet that I'd be happy to share with you that explains where all that product lost comes from. So that's a good resource if you are involved in the custom exempt market. Now, if you want to simplify this product, we can go to retail sales. So that means that we take that animal to a licensed, either state or federally inspected meat processing facility. They're going to cut that animal up into retail cuts. They're going to have that state inspection seal on the package. We're going to label that. And then we have to bring that product back home or to our business, put it in a freezer, and then sell it at a retail level. There's a lot of benefits to being in the retail market. One, we can charge a lot more for our product. But because we charge more for our product, there's going to be some negatives or extra expenses that we don't have to deal with on the custom exempt side.
Notably, meat isn't like other products that can sit on a shelf for weeks. Dr. Knight points out that this adds another layer of complexity to the direct marketing model. From processing and storage to delivery and customer communication, there are important logistical considerations that can impact how and when you sell your product.
Number one, that freezer space. We have to store that product, and then we have to sell that product once it hits the freezer. And unlike gears or dog leashes or widgets or something, that product has a shelf life. So we've got to make sure that our marketing is ready to go, and then we can get that product moved out in an expedited fashion. And when you start storing your product on site, my biggest caution to you would be to install a freezer alarm that is linked to your cell phone, because there is nothing worse than losing 800 pounds of product because the power went out or the freezer broke. With a temperature sensitive alarm that you put inside the freezer, when that temperature starts fluctuating or the temperature starts going down, it's going to send you a text message alert on your cell phone. And then you're able to go and correct that problem before that meat rises to a temperature that makes it illegal to sell or unsafe to consume. Everyone that I know that has started in the retail side of this and they didn't install these alarms have had at least one incident where a freezer has gone down and they've lost an entire freezer worth of beef or pork. And it's a simple process to avoid this just by installing that alarm. Another hurdle that we have to overcome is, what do we do with all the different retail cuts? You'll find that pork chops, bacon, ribs, real easy to sell. Sometimes the hams are real easy to sell at certain times of the year, and then certain times of the year the hams are more difficult to sell. Depending on where you live, that front shoulder may be a commodity or it may not. Folks are not aware that they could be cut up into country-style ribs, pork steaks. Maybe you could have them cut into cottage bacon to make them easier to sell. Not everyone is a barbecue aficionado. Me personally, I love that whole Boston butt to put on the smoker to make pulled pork. But maybe not all your clients have a smoker or know how to do that. So maybe you need to educate them on how to put that into a crock pot or the oven or different ways that they can use that product and make it valuable.
But this is also where you can be the most creative, Dr. Knight says. From building unique subscription boxes or offering specialty cuts, to creating engaging on-farm experiences or telling your story through social media, there are countless ways to connect with consumers and set your product apart.
And this is the perfect opportunity to get creative. I had a client that was selling pork hand over fist at the local farmer's market, but the one thing that he couldn't get rid of was country-style spare ribs because no one knew what to do with them. You know, most folks are familiar how to cook a pork chop. What do we do with ribs, ham, so on and so forth, but those country-style spare ribs just weren't selling. He renamed them to Grillin' Chops, and they started flying off the shelf and becoming one of his top products. So there's always room for creativity and marketing. And of course, when you get into direct sales, marketing is the key component. You know, a lot of us get into farming because we just like being around the animals. And when it comes time to send the animals down the road and get paid, we would prefer to just, hand the animals off to someone and then they cut us a check. Well, in the direct sales world, that model doesn't really exist. We actually have to get out there, do the marketing, do the advertising, find the clients, interact with the clients. And if that's something that you're unwilling or unable to do, then maybe direct sales are not the route you should go. But if you decide you want to get into direct sales, we actually have to set aside part of our week, so many hours during the week that we dedicate just to marketing and advertising. Luckily, different softwares and social media platforms allow us to develop videos, ads, push notifications, and whatnot that we can do one part of the week and then schedule their release continuously throughout the week. When it comes to direct marketing, consistency is key. You need to engage with your potential clients on a day-to-day basis. Social media is crucial. If you're not familiar with social media or you don't like to use social media, maybe it's time to recruit grandchildren, nieces, nephews, folks that are off the farm, but maybe they understand that aspect of things. I often get asked if I am bombarding folks every single day with an advertisement, won't they get tired of me and turn me off and just quit responding? Well, the answer to that is yes. If you are just sending them constant advertisements, they will get annoyed and turn you off. But part of this direct marketing is sharing your story. And sharing your story doesn't always include putting a commercial in front of your clients' faces. We want to share what makes us different. What is our niche? Why should people care about our pork?
Dr. Knight emphasizes that a key part of the selling process is telling your story. It's often one of the first things customers look for, especially when visiting your website or social media pages. Sharing who you are, how you raise your animals, and why you do what you do helps build trust and transparency, which can be just as valuable as the product itself.
And some of the reasons people care about your pork is they want to know that the animal is living a healthy and happy life. Maybe some folks want to know what that animal is fed, so they're interested in organic production or non-GMO feeds. But I think the majority of folks, they are going to use some of those marketing labels like all natural, all organic, so on and so forth, as a proxy to know that those animals are raised in a healthy and humane way. And so we can avoid some of those costs of those specific marketing labels by just highlighting how we treat our animals, how they're raised, what they eat. Folks want to know that those animals are happy, healthy, living a good life, they're treated well, and at the end they just have that one bad day. And we can share this by sharing our day-to-day lives. Take a quick 30-second video of you feeding the pigs. Take a quick second showing the pigs nursing. Show them throughout their lifestyle. Educate people on what you do on a day-to-day basis. And so now you're not just someone selling them a product, you're entertainment. They're living vicariously through you sharing your story. And because of this, they'll want to purchase your product. You've now created a connection between you and your consumer. And this connection is what is going to lead to your sales. But ultimately, we actually have to have a location where we sell our product. A lot of folks will go the farm stand route. This works excellent if you live on a busy highway or a commuting highway or places that are heavy in tourism. Just putting out a big sign for your farm stand will attract people driving by. If you live in a commuter location, having that farm stand open in the off hours where folks getting off work and they don't have time to go to the grocery store can just stop in, buy some pork chops for dinner. If you live in a heavy tourist location, maybe you want to include some agritourism aspects to your farm stand so that they can stop with the whole family. They can take pictures with a tractor. They can pet a piglet. They can see your farm. They can interact with the landscape. Those are all good ways to attract people. But when you have a farm stand, there's a couple things that you have to take in mind. One is if it's on a busy highway or something, they have to easily access it. You don't want them to see your farm stand sign as they're driving past your farm stand sign. Those signs need to be well in advance, alerting people that your farm stand is coming up. You can make a left or a right in 0.3 miles or 1 mile. And then as you get closer, give them cues. This is where you turn. You need to be able to turn in there easily. Once they turn in there needs to be ample parking. And, if you live in a busy, touristy type place, sometimes turning into a location, finding parking are one of the top concerns of the people that will stop there. So if you let them know, hey, look, we're easy to get to. It's easy to turn into here. You can park. You can get back on your way to the next tourist location is really important. And then once they get there, your product has to be available, right? And so you can have someone that is staffing your farm stand, or you can go to a contactless farm stand. That's where you have a point of sale system where someone just physically walks up to the freezer, grabs the product, they scan it themselves, and then they're going to pay with Venmo or they're going to swipe their credit card, so on and so forth. When you have these nice contactless systems, it's great because not everyone can afford to hire someone to work at this farm stand. Plus, you can leave your farm stand open 24 hours a day. And so the folks that are coming in late at night, they have a place to buy something when nothing else is open. Now, are there negatives with having contactless? Yes, there is thievery sometimes. Sometimes people aren't good with technology and they might misscan stuff or whatnot. And you have to build that into your pricing. And what I mean is if you live in an area where theft, vandalism isn't really a problem, you build in a little cushion, and then when it does happen, it's fine. But, ultimately, is it cheaper to pay someone to be at that stand from 8 to 5 during the day? Or is it cheaper to have that stand open 24 hours a day where you can sell more product, but there might be the occasional theft or vandalism? And so that's a judgment call you have to make on your location and with your clients.
But as Dr. Knight points out, if investing in a farm stand isn't the right fit for you, there are still plenty of options to get your product into consumers' hands. From partnering with local stores or butcher shops to utilizing online marketplaces, farmers markets, or even delivery services, there's flexibility in how you build your sales model to fit your resources and goals.
We have alternatives to farm stands. We can form an online business where folks find you through social media, and then they can just simply buy your product online and have it shipped to them. Now, there's some education that goes along with that. Meat is a perishable product, so we have to let those clients know that they can't purchase this while they're on vacation and then have that FedEx package of pork chops sitting on their front porch for 2 weeks, because it's going to go bad. And then that's going to make some clients weary. It's like, if I buy this through the mail, is it going to be good once it gets to me? And you have to assure your clients that, if you're available to pick this FedEx or UPS package up when it arrives, then it's going to be just fine. But if something does go wrong, we're going to make it right. If something does happen to go wrong, we're either going to refund your purchase price or supply you with new product. That comforting is going to drive more sales.
Dr. Knight also reminds us getting customers and keeping them is a process. Understanding customer behavior, preferences, and what keeps them coming back is key to building a sustainable long-term business. Whether it's consistent communication, product quality, or a memorable customer experience, those details make a big difference over time.
I had a client that does a really successful business through online marketing and online sales. And he said to me, one of our top costs is customer acquisition. So it might cost us $75 to acquire a customer, but once we have a customer and we get repeat business, the cost goes down quite a bit. And so what they really want is repeat business. They don't want someone just buying one pork chop to try it out, because the acquisition cost, the cost of the marketing and the website and everything is just too high to just do one-offs. What we really want is repeat business. And they get repeat business by having a good quality product, reaching out to those folks and making sure that they had a good experience and seeing if there's anything they can do to improve that experience. Some other things that they do is they create packages, box deals. Maybe you want to try box one, which is a small amount of product that gives you a variety: pork chops, sausage, bacon, but in small packages. Because believe it or not everyone has a 16 square cubic foot freezer in their house or apartment. A lot of folks live in an urban environment, and the only freezer space that they have is on top of their refrigerator. And so those folks are willing to buy these boxes and set up a subscription to where they get the box every 2 weeks or a box every 3 weeks, so on and so forth. And you can cater to those folks by providing different size boxes with different varieties. And then you can set up a subscription with them so that it's just going to ship to them on a recurring basis. And this is an ideal situation for you, because now you have a steady repeat client. In the same line of thinking, another opportunity to sell your pork is through community-supported agriculture, or CSA. And this is where you sell shares of your farm to individuals, and so they pay up front. So you figure out what the cost of production is, and then you say, well, if you're willing to join my CSA or join a subscription to my farm, it costs you X amount of dollars, and then certain times a year I am going to provide you with X amount of product. And this works really well. And what you will find if you have a farm stand, or you have an online business, or you have one of these CSAs, or if you've even got a local farmer's market, people will like your product, and then they'll start coming to you and saying, Colt, I really like your pork, but I wish I could get my eggs from you, or I wish I could get some beef from you, or I wish that you sold chicken. It's great buying your pork, but I got to go to 5 different locations to get all this stuff, and I would rather just get it here. And then so you're going to need to diversify your operation. Now, some things are really easy for you to diversify. So adding eggs to your farm stand, super easy, because most folks that have a farm, they got chickens. And chickens are really easy to add to the homestead or add to your farm. And so you can start selling eggs through your farm stand relatively easy. Now, selling chicken, selling beef, selling lamb, that kind of thing, well, that might be too much for your operation. Maybe you're not set up for it. Maybe you don't have time. But what you can do is form cooperatives or partnerships with your friends and neighbors that do raise those products. And you can sell their product at your farm stand, through your online farm store, through your CSA, or through that farmer's market that you go to every weekend. And by doing that, you have now eliminated the cost of production, but you have made your clients happy because you now have a diversified set of things that you can sell on your farm. And that ends up working really well. And as reciprocation, they can sell your pork at their beef farm stand or through their beef farm. And so everything works out really well. That leads me to my next point, is the competition. When we get into direct sales, you shouldn't try to compete with the wholesale market, and you shouldn't try to compete with your friends and neighbors. What you do is create your own market, and people come to you based on what you have to offer, not because you are 20 cents cheaper than your neighbor, or not because they can buy pork at the grocery store for 50 cents a pound and you charge $5 a pound. Those are not the customers that you're looking for. You are looking for folks that want to be part of your lifestyle. They want to buy your product because how it's raised. And that's where the different niches come in, like organic, all natural, humanely raised, heritage breed, family farm, grass-fed, pasture-raised, so on and so forth.
He also notes that segmenting your customers, understanding who they are, their needs, and even their disposable income can help guide your pricing strategy and marketing efforts. Not every customer is the same, and tailoring your approach can lead to stronger relationships and more consistent sales.
You know, the folks that are willing to buy your product, they want that. They are coming to you because you have what they want. And sometimes as farmers, we have a different mindset, where we pinch pennies, maybe we consider ourselves cheapskates, and we say, why would someone pay X amount of dollars for my pork when they can just go to the big box store and buy it for substantially cheaper? Well, the answer to that is we're not marketing to you. We are marketing to the folks that want to buy our product. And you will be surprised at the amount of people that are willing to buy your product. The pandemic really made this evident. I can remember during the pandemic when grocery store meat shelves were drying up and the demand for locally sourced product went through the roof. And I assumed that once the pandemic subsided, that local demand would ameliorate, and when in fact it didn't. We still have a tremendous demand for locally sourced products. And in fact, here in Maine, we have more demand for locally sourced product than we have capacity. And so we're not meeting that demand for locally sourced because there's simply not enough animals to supply. And, these farm-to-table businesses are going through quite a boom, if you will.
Dr. Knight has covered a lot in today's episode, so let's hear some of those main points summarized.
Just to recap some things, social media is kind of a crucial aspect. We have to be on social media. We have to consistently produce content on social media. And to do that, we need to set aside part of our week as marketing and advertising, filming videos, setting them up, scheduling them for release consistently throughout the week. Very important. Those videos don't have to be commercials or advertisements. We should just be sharing our story, sharing our day-to-day lives, showing folks how happy, healthy, and beautiful our farm is. And then when it comes to the retail side, once we get customers start coming in, how do we get rid of our product? Are there certain products that we need to spend more time on to get going? Like that story I highlighted, the gentleman changed the name of country style ribs to grilling chops and made all the difference. Another story I can share with you is some folks came up with a recipe for cinnamon bacon, and that cinnamon bacon no one wanted. The name repulsed people for some reason. Well, guess what? Those folks changed the name from cinnamon bacon to old style or old home bacon. I can't remember the exact terminology, but changing the label to old timey from cinnamon bacon, well, then it became a number one seller. So sometimes it's just the name of the product that turns people off, and using some creativity can help push that product. We've got some other tools at our disposal. Once we have contact information for our existing clients, we can use some software that send push notifications, or that is, they will generate emails, text messages, and social media blast out to our clients and say, hey, look, we're running a special on sausage this week, and we can reduce the price, generate a sale, and get that out of the freezer so that we can make room for the next product. And with everything, pricing is key. We need to take into account all of our labor, storage, advertising cost into the cost of our product and price it accordingly. Even if we think that price is high, those are the folks that we're trying to attract. So with that, if you've got any questions on direct marketing and small-scale swine operations, feel free to send me an email at colt.knight@maine.edu. I work with small-scale operations across the country to help them set up some different ideas for sales and marketing, and it's what I like to do. So with that, thanks for listening, and I hope this gave you some ideas and sparked some interest.
Well, we've covered so much about marketing today, and after this episode, hopefully you have some tools to begin your own direct-to-consumer journey. This wraps up our 4-part mini-series on niche swine production. We'll return to our regular schedule next week with more new monthly episodes focused on all things swine. A big thank you to Dr. Colt Knight for joining us and sharing his insight and expertise. And of course, thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this special series. We hope you found it valuable. Be sure to leave us a rating and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of the PigX Podcast. Until then, I'm Delaney Howell, and this has been the PigX Podcast.
PigX is a national podcast hosted by the Pig Livability Project partners at Iowa State University, Kansas State University, and Purdue, and supported by the Iowa Pork Industry Center. For more information on the project, head to www.piglivability.org, or to inquire directly with questions regarding the project, email ipic.iastate.edu. PigX, ideas in the swine industry worth sharing.